Good morning. Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, and friends. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Wayne County. I am your worship associate this morning and also your minister, the Reverend Walter Clark. We are a diverse congregation. We welcome you. We welcome you as you are, regardless of your age, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, economic status, or physical ability. We come together to seek deeper meaning and understanding from each other and the world around us. And your presence here today is a gift that brings us closer to that understanding. And we are a very active community, if you hadn't figured out by the amount of conversation going on in the lobby. And we have some things living beyond our Sunday hours that I would like to let you know about. We have 2 or more social events for the whole congregation this summer. You may have seen the flyers on the wall. There's a stargazing event with an optional camp out here July 30th. And there's a picnic day at the Lake Park at Loyal Oak on August 20th. I'm hoping to camp out here in a tent July 30th and wake up and do service the next day. And that will be the blessing of the animal service, so if I'm in jeans, understand it's because of the dogs and not because I'm lazy. Make sure after today's service, we will be setting up for the garage sale. So please stay to help move chairs and set up tables. See Aaron for directions. And if you have any large items, please come on Monday or Tuesday evening so they can go directly here into Strawn Hall. And remember to come and shop on Friday, the 29th from 3 to 7, or Saturday the 30th from 9 to 1. And also after service, there's cake for some reason. Apparently, we are celebrating and getting ready to say goodbye to Ann Wilson as she retires as our administrator. Please stay for cake, and we're going to have a few words after service to say goodbye to Ann. And now, Karen, if you would like to welcome our visitors.
Sure, thank you, Reverend Walter. And as he said, it's a time to welcome visitors or folks we haven't seen in a while. And you're welcome to stand up. I'll bring the microphone to you if you want to stand up and introduce yourselves. And hi, Eric. Good to see you guys. Does anyone want to stand up and introduce themselves? If I'm getting some heads shaking, no, but that's okay. Don't be surprised if people come over to you after the service. Good, yay. Somebody's willing.
Since you pointed us out, we haven't been here in about 2 or 3 years. But I'm Erica and my son Sebastian. So we checked you guys out by virtual last weekend. Here we are.
Thank you. And Sebastian was this big when he was last year, so good to have you. Anybody else? Good to see Doug and Deb back here again for the second time, I think. Yes? All right. Well, thank you, and hopefully we can take time to greet some of these newer folks or people we haven't seen in a while after the service over cake this time. Thank you.
So before we begin our service, I just wanted to preface that you are in for a very special treat. The service is being hosted and done by our worship associates. This is a poetry service. They're going to read poems that mean something to them and explain why. And I love this because it gives an opportunity to see what is worshipful from other folks' perspectives. And they really rose to the challenge and picked 2 poems each. And so they kind of took out some of the elements of service. So I just really quick, we won't have joys and sorrows today, but I did want to lift up. Many of you know our fellow congregant, Dan O'Rourke. Dan O'Rourke recently had an emergency brain surgery to remove a tumor last week. He is now home and recovering and doing physical therapy. And when he was asked after surgery to start to do the cognitive test, he said, man, woman, camera, television. So Dan's humor is still intact. They were unable to remove that. Denise thanks all of those who sent her well wishes and cards, and you are please welcome to send cards to the family. They would like that, and they will be around as they are able, and they thank this community for the love and support. Let us settle in. Thank you so much for this opportunity to join us in worship today. Stay after, socialize. Let us get to know each other better. Now I ask you to silence your cell phones, put them into worship mode, and join us for our time together.
Our chalice lighting this morning is a haiku by Dr. Kamana Bahar of Johns Hopkins University. Stars, though they be far, take joy in knowing that they see each other's light.
Now, please join in rise in body and spirit as we sing our opening hymn, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire, number 34 in your gray hymnals.
Though I may speak with bravest fire, Okay, I picked one that was The Children's Hour by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It's one that's meaningful to me since I was a kid. My sister and I, our mom would take time and read stories, poems. There was a book called The Children's Garden of Verses, had all kinds of in it. And it was a chair that we could all three fit in, and it was just, it just reminds me of those days and those times, and, the importance of taking time for kids. Between the dark and the daylight, when the night is beginning to lower, comes a pause in the day's occupations that's known as the children's hour. I hear in the chamber above me the patter of little feet, the sound of a door that's opened, and voices soft and sweet. From my study, I see in the lamplight descending the broad hall stair, grave Alice, laughing Allegra, and Edith with golden hair. A whisper and then a silence, yet I know by their merry eyes they are plotting and planning together to take me by surprise. A sudden rush from the stairway, a sudden raid from the hall. By 3 doors left unguarded, they enter my castle wall. They climb up on the turret or the arms and back of my chair. If I try to escape, they surround me. They seem to be everywhere. They almost devour me with kisses, their arms about me entwine, till I think of the Bishop of Bingen in his mouse tower on the Rhine. Do you think, old blue-eyed bandetti, because you have scaled the wall, that such an old mustache am I is not a match for you all? I have you fast in my fortress and will never let you depart, but put you down in the dungeon in the round tower of my heart. And there I will keep you forever, yes, forever and a day, till the walls shall crumble to ruin and molder in dust away.
Rise.
Zora Neale Hurston, in her book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, said, "You got to go there to know there. Your papa and your mama, nobody else can tell you and show you. 2 things everybody's got to do for themselves. They've got to go to God, and they've got to figure out about living for themselves." You got to go there to know there is something that I've thought about a lot over my entire life, and I turned 60 this year. And as I used to listen to older folks talk about things that they were realizing, I am one of those older folks now. And so the thing that I realized lately is that I'm not going to live forever. I'm a late bloomer in that way. And so figuring out how to spend time in a meaningful way at this point in my life is what brought me to this poem. I guess there's something about that early morning hour that Jean was talking about. This is by David White. In that first hardly noticed moment in which you wake, coming back to this life from the other, more secret, movable, and frighteningly honest world where everything began. There's a small opening into the new day which closes the moment you begin to make your plans. What you can plan is too small for you to live. What you can live wholeheartedly will make plans enough for the vitality hidden in your sleep. To be human is to become visible while carrying what is hidden as a gift to others. To remember the other world in this world is to live your true inheritance. You are not a troubled guest on this earth. You are not an accident amid other accidents. You were invited from another and greater night than the one from which you have just emerged. Now looking through the slanting light of the morning window, toward the mountain presence of everything that can be? What urgency calls you to your one love? What shape waits in the seed of you to grow and spread its branches against a future sky? Is it waiting in the fertile sea? In the trees beyond the house? In the life you can imagine for yourself? Or in the open, lovely white page of the writing desk?
It will come as no surprise to anyone who knows me that my poems are written by New England authors. This poem is written by Edna St. Vincent Millay, who a native of my hometown in Maine. Written in 1912, when Millay was 20, it spoke to me as one who felt like many teens, trapped by family and circumstance and society's limited expectations. Millay, too, was trapped in poverty and limited opportunities until this poem led a sponsor to send her to Vassar College. This poem speaks to me of burden, of rebirth, and of strength. It's a long poem, so settle in. I'll try not to talk fast, but I might need to. And lest any of my fellow humanists worry, I view the use of the term God here in this poem as Einstein did, a symbol that allows one to speak of the whole of things. The poem is Renaissance. All I could see from where I stood was 3 long mountains and a wood. I turned and looked the other way and saw 3 islands in a bay. So with my eye, I traced the line of the horizon, thin and fine, straight around till I was come back to where I started from. And all I could see from where I stood was 3 long mountains and a wood. Over these things I could not see. These were the things that bounded me. And I could touch them with my hand almost, I thought, from where I stand. And all at once things seemed so small, my breath came short and scarce at all. But sure, the sky is big, I said, miles and miles above my head. So here upon my back, I'll lie and look my fill into the sky. And so I looked, and after all, the sky was not so very tall. The sky, I said, must somewhere stop, and sure enough, I see the top. The sky, I thought, is not so grand. I most could touch it with my hand. And reaching up my hand to try, I screamed to feel it touch the sky. I screamed, and lo, infinity came down and settled over me, forced back my scream into my chest, bent back my arm upon my breast, until it seemed I must behold immensity made manifold. I saw and heard and knew at last the how and why of all things past, present, and forevermore. The universe, cleft to the core, lay open to my probing sense. All sin was my sinning, all atoning mine, and mine the gall of all regret. Mine was the weight of every brooded wrong, the hate. No hurt I did not feel, no death that was not mine. Mine each last breath that crying met an answering cry from the compassion that was I. All suffering mine, and mine its rod, mine pity, like the pity of God. Long had I lain thus, craving death, when quietly the earth beneath me gave way, and inch by inch, so great at last had grown the crushing weight, into the earth I sank, till I full 6 feet underground did lie, and sank no more. There is no weight can follow here, however great. Deep in the earth I rested now, cool its hand upon the brow and soft its breast beneath the head of one who is so gladly dead. And over all at once, and over all the pitying rain began to fall. I lay and heard each pattering hoof upon my lowly thatched roof, and seemed to love the sound far more than ever I had done before. For rain it hath a friendly sound to one who's 6 feet underground, and scarce the friendly voice or face, a grave is such a quiet place. The rain, I said, is kind to come and speak to me in my new home. I would I were alive again, to kiss the fingers of the rain, to drink into my eyes the shine of every slanting silver line, to catch the freshened, fragrant breeze from drenched and dripping apple trees. For soon the shower will be done, and then the broad face of the sun will laugh above the rain-soaked earth, until the world with answering mirth shakes joyously, and each round drop rolls twinkling from its glass blade top. How can I bear it, buried here, while overhead the sky grows clear and blue again after the storm? I seized, and through the breathless hush that answered me, the far-off rush of herald wings came whispering like music down the vibrant strings. The startled storm clouds reared on high and plunged in terror down the sky, and the big rain in one black wave fell from the sky and struck my grave. I know not how things can be. I only know there came to me a fragrance such as never clings to aught save happy, living things. A sound as some joyous elf singing sweet songs to please himself, and through and over everything a sense of glad awakening. And all at once the heavy night fell from my eyes, and I could see a drenched and dripping apple tree, a long last line of silver rain, a sky grown clear and blue again. I know not how such things can be. I breathed my soul back into me. Ah, up then, forth from the ground I sprang I, and hailed the earth with such a cry as is not heard from a man who has been dead and lives again. About the trees my arms I wound, like one gone mad, I hugged the ground. I raised my quivering arms on high, I laughed and laughed into the sky, till at my throat a strangling sob caught fiercely, and a great heart throb sent instant tears into my eyes. Oh God, I cried, no dark disguise can e'er hereafter hide from me thy radiant identity. Thou canst not move across the grass, but my quick eyes will see thee pass, nor speak, however silently, my hushed voice will answer thee. I know the path that tells thy way through the cool eve of every day. God, I can push the grass apart and lay my finger on thy heart. The world stands out on either side, no wider than the heart is wide. Above the world is stretched the sky, no higher than the soul is high. The heart can push the sea and land farther away on either hand. The soul can split the sky in two and let the face of God shine through. But east and west will pinch the heart that cannot keep them pushed apart. And he whose soul is flat, the sky will cave in on him by and by.
This is a poem called Catch Me, and it really caught me because I found it very humorous. It's about a baseball. The baseball is the main character, and he is the narrator, and there are 3 women and 1 man. The 3 women and 1 man work together, and they go to the ball game, and this is what the baseball is wanting to happen. It doesn't actually happen, it's a daydream, and which is also really interesting. I'm a foul ball. You see, this is how I picture it. Wednesday night, and 8,716 fans make old Cleveland Stadium look like a cherry cheesecake tin in the refrigerator with no discernible pieces left. Just sparse hunks of graham cracker crust, blobs of cheesecake, and a stray cherry here and there. Before the game, the umpire, Rocky Rowe, rubs Delaware mud all over me, deep into me, hiding my gloss. And you've been here hours, squirming in those wooden seats because George, the guy from your office, is passionate and says, if you miss batting practice, you miss the whole game. And he's bragging to Linda from finance about the strings he pulled to get these seats. You'll be able to hear him swearing at the ump. And you kind of wish you were high up so you could see the lake. And you and your friend Stacy looked through George's binoculars at the players' good butts. And you're glad George has a crush on Linda, not you. And I wait in a bag for hours. Drunks behind you get another beer for another inning. A well-lit plane buzzes the horseshoe in the almost black night sky. I'm anxious for contact, baby, and I hope I'm not a home run to the alley where I'll wind up in a security guard's hands and spend my life in batting practice. I want human contact. And now in the seventh, the ball girl and her fat fingers walks me and a few other balls up to Rocky, who shoves us in a thin pocket, and you and Stacy return from the scummy restroom, and George, too drunk now, says, you should see the men's room. You gotta piss in a trough. And Linda laughs, and you and Stacy share an Arctic blast, and I am flying out to Wickender's glove and his rosined up left hand grips me across my seams, and I start wishing to be swatted high backwards. And you're actually a little drunk now, you're realizing, ow! And I'm free flying like God, spinning up and back, and a congregation bus from Bentleyville screams and stands and watches me and dreams as I stop climbing and open wide my eyes and fall with the ease of love. And a bald guy leans his fat Docker shorts legs into the blue upper deck rail and looks at me like money and offers me his arms. And I pray I don't go easily. And I spin through his fingers painlessly and head down past an empty loge, blue plastic tarp-covered chairs down, and you and Stacy scream and hold your arms up helplessly. And George elbows Linda aside. I got it, honey. His first words of affection. And I'm so happy. And I give myself up and smack George on his shoulder, bounce off Linda's head. She'll remember the bump lovingly tomorrow. And I land softly in your screaming, dreamy, soft hands like an egg tossed from Lonnie Beauchamp, your 7th grade love at the school picnic. And you hold me to thousands of cheers and scream madly and hug me to your cleavage, oblivious to my 108 double stitches. And I smile, knowing I'll be lost in your closet for life.
Well, that was fun. I asked Janice real quick for the last stanza of her poem. The world stands out on either side, no wider than the heart is wide. I love this idea of this wide heart, this worldly love that we feel once we connect with that is deepest and sacred. And I love the fact that this poem talks about finding that connection after feeling all of the pain in the world. And now I'm going to ask you for money. because half of our monies collected today goes to the Hope Center. Because I've lost my pages. It's in here. It is not in here. The Hope Center gives people chances. The Hope Center gives people who are down on their luck an opportunity to get clean, to get basic needs, to get back on their feet, and to make a second go at it. The Hope Center allows people to reconnect. It allows us to help them, to feel some of their pain, and to help make this world wider with love. I hope that you will give generously today to throw your arms around the world and those in Worcester and Wayne County. The offering will now be collected and very gratefully received. Please join me in the unison dedication of the offering. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
Good morning. I'm Pat McDaniels, in case you don't know me. About 10 years ago, I noticed something strange, and that was that my peers, my cohort, people about the same age as me, were changing. They were changing. You know, we're the boomers. We're the generation, I don't care, I'm laid back, peace man. We're from that generation, right? And suddenly these friends, relatives, neighbors, church friends, whatever, began to seem to be worried a lot about life, about the world. What is the world coming to? I heard that a lot. What's happening with these kids today? They're putting tattoos on their faces. I mean, what's the world coming to, right? And I thought, what is going on? We're boomers. We were supposed to rock and roll our way through the whole experience of life, right? And so 2 things happened. One was I looked into the mirror with my third eye, and I realized, oh, it's happening to me too. I'm starting to fuss and worry and get cranky. What's going on? So I went to the books. Some of you know I'm a mental health therapist, and I'm really interested in brain stuff. So I went to the books to find out what's going on, and I looked at aging issues, and I learned about a little gland we have in our brain called hypothalamus. And it's like as big as a fingernail, which blows me away because it's responsible for so many tasks. Its main job is to keep us homeostatic, but one of its critical jobs is the production of and release of what I call happy hormones. You know, dopamine, GABA, oxytocin, the things that make us feel good. Well, what I learned is that as we age, the hypothalamus decides we don't need so many of those happy hormones, and it reduces production and release. Now, if anyone had asked me, I would say people my age and older need more happy drugs, not fewer, right? But so I started to realize that people do get anxious, and we do become worrywarts, and it's not just because we're weird or because we're old and we ache. Some of it is chemical. So that long intro, I chose a poem by Mary Oliver. Don't we use love our Mary Oliver? And it's one of my favorites. It's called I Worried. I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing? Even the sparrows can do it. And I'm hopeless. Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? Am I going to get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally, I saw that worrying had come to nothing, and I gave it up. And I took my old body and went out into the morning, and I sang.
Good morning. Most of you know me. My name is Stacy Clemmy. I found it very interesting to choose poems because poetry is not my natural language. And I ended up with this one for two main reasons. One is because I care very deeply about the world around us, and it's hard to see the news these days and know that these are reports of very real issues impacting so many people. And the second is, as a member of the chronically ill community, my health journey has been interesting. And this speaks to me about resilience and community. So this is There Are So Many Ways to Stay Alive by Teresa I. Soto. There are so many ways to stay alive. You can wear soft clothes and focus on brushing your teeth and hydrating. You can ask yourself what you need and not be mad when you don't have an answer, only a shrug. You can breathe in, and then, with care, you can also breathe out, taking the thing one single breath at a time. You can give yourself a chance. Remember not only your mistakes, but also all the ways that you matter. From eyelash to shoelace, you matter. You matter when you are sad, when the world is heavy like wet laundry dragging from your arms. You matter when you are angry and you use your teeth like welded prison bars to keep words that might cause harm from escaping past your lips. There are so many ways to stay alive. You can come heart wrapped in several layers of foil, mashed into a plastic box with an ill-fitting lid, to a place where people say your name like it is good news. You can always fight your way towards freedom. I recommend that you decline the option of struggling by yourself. The point is to get your life. There was this wise ruler who said once that by ourselves we are each unprotected, but two people together can face the worst: the failure, the heartbreak, the upending of the worlds we hold in our hearts, and the secret shame that will shed like the skin of a smooth snake, though it will take some time. And with 3 people, you being one of them, you may find that eventually all will be well.
This is a poem called Fern Hill by Dylan Thomas. It's about childhood. I grew up in Orrville, Ohio, on the outskirts of town. The street that was in front of our house was the one on the edge of the map, right? So I was surrounded by farm fields and woods in the backyard. And I remember how I felt as a child wandering through all of that. I'd take grasshoppers home to my mom and show them to her. And there's something about that time that has stayed with me all of my life, but I haven't been able to access it in the same way. And maybe that's the way things are supposed to be. But as I said, I'm getting older, and I'm hoping that I'm going to find a way to get back to that way of being in the world. But before I start, I was seeing this sign, and I just wanted to say that Joyce Fast had a poetry class that I took in high school. And as Tim was reading his poem about describing what the stands look like and using all that wonderful imagery, she had us do exercises like that. Give me 5 good similes, you know? And I've never forgotten that, and I just wanted to say how grateful I am for that. I wanted to say thanks to Gene, too, because he taught me 7th grade algebra. And as I say, I'm a late bloomer, and I was more interested in the funny stories that he told than getting the equations to balance correctly. But it's all part of growing up, and that's what this is about. Now, as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry, time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes. And honored among wagons, I was prince of the apple towns. And once below a time, I lordly had the trees and leaves trail with daisy and barley down the rivers of the windfall light. And as I was green and carefree, famous among the barns, about the happy yard, and singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young once only, time let me play and be golden in the mercy of his means. And green and golden I was huntsman and herdsman, the calves sang to my horn, the foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath rang slowly in the pebbles of the holy streams. All the sun long it was running, it was lovely, the hayfields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys, it was air and playing lovely and watery, and fire green as grass. And nightly under the simple stars as I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. All the moon long I heard, blessed among stables, the night jars flying with the ricks and the horses flashing into the dark. And then to awake in the farm like a wanderer, white with dew, come back, the cock on his shoulder. It was all shining, it was Adam and maiden. The sky gathered again and the sun grew round that very day. So it must have been after the birth of the simple light, in that first spinning place, the spellbound horses walking warm out of the whinnying green stable onto the fields of praise. And honored among foxes and pheasants by the gay house under the new made clouds, and happy as the heart was long in the sun, born over and over, I ran my heedless ways. My wishes raced through the house-high hay, and nothing I cared at my sky blue trades that time allows in all of his tuneful turning, so few and such morning songs, before the children, green and golden, follow him out of grace. Nothing I cared in the lamb-white days that time would take me up to the swallow-thronged loft by the shadow of my hand, in the moon that is always rising, nor that riding to sleep I should hear him fly with the high fields and wake to the farm forever fled from the childless land. Oh, as I was young and easy in the mercy of his means, time held me green and dying, though I rang in my chains like the sea.
Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, Life is the Greatest Gift of All.
Life is the greatest gift of all, the riches on this earth. Life and its creatures, great and small, of high and lowly birth. So treasure it and measure it with deeds of shining worth. Mind is the brightest gift of all, it's the Mars. It's in creation's hidden plan, its quest surrounds Mars. It raised the wind, it changed the storm, it weighs the outmost stars. We are of life, its shining gift, the measure of all things. Up from the dust our temples live, our vision soars on wings. For seed and root, for flower and fruit, our grateful spirit sings.
I was attracted to this poem by Wendell Berry, and he's basically encouraging us to all slow down, think about each other, enjoy nature, use nature as a way to inspire you to live a better life, live a more loving life, and be happy. So the title is Manifesto, Mad Farmer Liberation Front. So friends, every day, do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world, work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. Denounce the government and embrace the flag. Hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Give your approval to all you cannot understand. Praise ignorance for what man has not encountered, he has not destroyed. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium. Plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant, that you will not live to harvest. Say that the leaves are harvested when they have rotted into the mold. Call that profit. Prophesy such returns. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Listen to Carry On. Put your ear close and hear the faint chattering of the songs that are to come. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. Go with your love to the fields. Lie easy in the shade. Rest your head in her lap. Swear allegiance to what is nighest your thoughts. As soon as the generals and the politicos predict the motions of your mind, lose it. Leave it as a sign to mark the false trail, the way you didn't go. Be like the fox who makes more tracks than necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars, waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
It's kind of lovely, isn't it, that so many of us shared common themes in the poems that we chose. Nature, of course, but also standing firm against the world and escaping our problems temporarily. Can't escape them for long. My second poem is much shorter. It's by Robert Frost. He said, "You know, I've often said that every poem solves something for me in life. I go so far as to say that every poem is a momentary stay against the confusion in the world." This poem for me represented a momentary stay as I too would ride my horse through the woods on a snowy evening. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it's queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. These woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
So I chose a Frost poem also for my second one. It's The Road Not Taken, which to me, I think everybody has a road not taken. I do, everybody does. That's why it means a lot to me. You know, so many times in life you're okay, I'm at the fork. You know, do I take the fork or do I take a path? You know. So that's why I picked it. I think it says a lot. Two roads diverged in the yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. Both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
So you know you can't go yet, right? We're celebrating after the service Anne's retirement and all that she has done for this congregation. And it is only fitting that we start this brief recognition with a few speakers. And it's fitting that after our poetry service, Pat found a wonderful poem about saying goodbye that she's going to first share with us.
I'll try to be brief because I know you want to get to celebrating, or some of you just have to go to the bathroom. But I want to say something about Anne personally, because 5-ish years ago, when I hadn't been here very long, Pastor Elaine graciously gave me an assignment to build a curriculum about spirituality in elderhood. Elderhood is my name for old age. And so I did that, and we had such a turnout that she decided she would take the evening group, and I took a Wednesday morning group, and I knew nothing about this place. I just had to go to Anne all the time. Anne, I don't know how to make copies. Anne, how do I show a video? And can you give me pencils? I mean, it was just, and as I worked with her through all of that, I realized this is my kind of woman. Because she's quiet, she doesn't fawn, fuss, or gush. She's just so intelligent, so capable, so helpful. I never asked her a question that she couldn't answer or help me with. And so I'm going to miss her. But the thing about life is we are, all of us, a composite of every experience we ever have and every interaction we ever have with people who come into our lives and people who leave our lives. And so this poem, it's always, for about 25 years, it's been my favorite poem. It's called After a While by Veronica Schofstall, and it's about growing, learning, and leaving. After a while, you learn the subtle difference between holding a hand and chaining a soul. And you learn that love does not mean leaning, and company doesn't mean security. And you begin to learn that kisses are not contracts, and presents are not promises. And you begin to accept your defeats with your head up and your eyes open, with the grace of a woman, not the grief of a child. And you learn to build all your roads on today, because tomorrow's ground is too uncertain for plans, and futures have a way of falling down in mid-flight. After a while, you learn that even sunshine burns if you get too much. So you plant your garden and decorate your own soul instead of waiting for someone to bring you flowers. And you learn that you really can endure, that you really are strong, and you really do have worth. And you learn, and you learn, and with every goodbye, you learn. Thank you.
So I'm willing to bet everybody here, for the most part, knows who this Ann Wilson person is. And I'm willing to bet almost everybody here has a story about how Ann did something wonderful. Am I right? Just about? Yeah? Okay. So we're not going to give you all a chance to speak. Some of us have to go to the bathroom. But I do want to ask a few people to speak, and I felt it was right to ask our board chair, Rachel, to come and to say a few words.
Good morning. So there is literally not enough time or appreciative words to express how we feel about Ann Wilson. As Reverend Walter and Pat already mentioned, that I imagine that every single one of us in here and virtually has moments of how Anne has helped them, supported them, just been Anne. We first came in 2011, first as visitors, then as new members, then as volunteers, and now as a board member for myself. And through all those years and times and services and celebrations and functions, Anne has been a guiding light for our family. But also, through all the things that we've been involved in, I've witnessed her be a guiding light for this congregation and all those things I mentioned. Ruthie Sewell and Mary Gentry picked out a beautiful bush, you will see here, an ornamental bush, that we will plant on our beautiful grounds in honor of Anne and her lasting work here. And this is a symbol of that, and we thank her for that. In addition, we also thank Bonnie, who will temporarily be holding down the fort until we fill Anne's position. So we thank her for that, and she is another example of an incredible, hardworking, dedicated, steadfast member of our congregation. So I just can't express enough how much, Anne, you have helped me and supported me, the board, the congregation. You will be missed. Thank you.
Can I tell you the story about when I first met Anne? I love this story. I had just gotten the invitation to candidate to this congregation, and it was around Easter, and I was visiting my family in Erie, and I decided I was going to let the congregation I was currently serving know where I was candidating. So we drove through Worcester, and I went right to that front sign you have out there, that green sign, to do a little video. So I've got my camera out, and I'm doing my video, and I'm starting to do my thing, and this car pulls up, and this woman jumps out and says, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" Now, as many of you know, you're not supposed to let the congregation know who the candidate is before the team gets to announce it. And I'm like, can I tell this person what I'm doing? And I figure if I lie, it's going to set a really bad precedent. I'm just going to fess up. And it's like, so you're all looking for a new minister and you just called a candidate? She's like, you're Walter. Anne knows everything. And here's that first impression, what it told me about Anne. Anne is fiercely protective of this congregation. Anne loves you all fiercely. The job she does is secondary. The job she does is a result of the community that is built up around this place. So when we talk about Anne being very clinical and very business-minded, I agree, right? There's nothing that Anne can't find a spreadsheet for. And I've seen the softer side of Anne. I've seen the side of Anne that does gush in her Anne way. It's not like other people. But it's very, very real. And it's very, very present. Anne's not leaving us. Anne is leaving the administrator position, right? So what does that mean? It means Anne gets to be a congregant. So a couple little descriptions about what a congregant does. A congregant does not have keys. A congregant doesn't know where electrical cords are hidden. A congregant doesn't know what the calendar is off the top of their head. When Anne's going to be going away for a little bit. She's going to get some vacation. She's going to do some things with Jay and go around the country and have a great time. She's going to have a few months. And she's going to come back. And she's not going to be the administrator. She's going to be the same person that fiercely loves this congregation. And you all love her. And you're all going to show that love for her by not asking her where the keys are, and by not asking her where to find electrical cords, or why the coffee isn't done, or how to unlock the door. You're going to ask Anne, how was your trip? What's Jay's latest bad pun? How are the grandkids? Ann gets to be a congregant. Ann gets to still be a vital, strong part of this community. And I cannot wait for you to meet the new Ann. But it wouldn't be a send-off to Ann and a thank you without someone who really can attest to all that she's done. And so I would like to invite the Reverend Elaine Strawn. Oh, she's here? To say a few words. Reverend Elaine? Yeah, she snuck in here at the last minute.
Thank you all for that, sir. When I left this beloved congregation about 3 years ago, I went from a nice, warm fireplace into the spit above a campfire by starting to work on some national things, like the Regional Commission Lay Ministry Council, and continuing with Good Offices work, which is when ministers and congregations don't get along. And I had been doing some of those things before, but I got really deeply, intently involved in it this time. And so I would get calls. I would get calls from commission lay ministers whose ministers had left, and they were saying, we don't have any job descriptions. We haven't rewritten our mission statement for years. And I thought, oh my. Have you ever thought of hiring a trained mechanical engineer to be your administrator? Because that person has a systems outlook that can keep those kinds of things moving and can keep them going. When ministers and their co-ministers really don't get along, again, I thought about who is a person who had a system-trained mind that's always looking for a lovely problem to solve, like a mechanical engineer does, sifting for those things and keeping it alive and vital. But also someone who knows how to engage in partnership. So someone who has an office that is far too small, that is right by the front door, the face that you see when you look in the front door, who shares her office with the copier and the staff mailbox and her own desk and all of the policy manuals, but also has a chair in there. So when things loom really large, you just walk in and you flop yourself down on that chair and you brainstorm for a while. There isn't any real training for that, but Ann had a real gift at that. When you start a parent support group and there is a couple who come who have fairly newborn twins who scream when anyone other than mom holds them, but the goal of this is for adult conversation among the parents, you need two people. And so you have an Ann who dearly loves children and knows how to calm them. And Ann calms her twin down, and I take mine out in the parking lot because they're still screaming. When I listen to the ministers who talk about financial statements, or they don't know how to be head of staff, or they don't know how to do those financial pieces, I think, have you ever thought of hiring a person trained by H&R Block? When this congregation welcomed Ann, and we welcomed a multi-talented, multifaceted, multi-trained human being who knew how to do partnership and ministry, who knew what she was good at and knew what she was not so good at. And so even though the ministry here has always been shared among incredible talents and gifts and skills, I wouldn't have wanted to have been here without Anne being in partnership. So Walter, I hear there's a brewery in town. But again, this is a congregation that is multi-skilled. And so have you ever thought of having an IRS administrator or a Social Security administrator, sorry, Bonnie, in that? It just doesn't end the skills in this congregation. I'm so glad that Anne gets to travel, that she has a grandchild to celebrate in addition to her two fabulous daughters. But I'm also so glad that you all still have one another. It will be hard for a while, but Walter, I want to tell you that my experience, and you know this, my experience of this congregation is that when times are hard and that 108 double-stitched baseball is falling right out of the sky, there are gentle hands, a lot of them, that catch it. And there aren't words. And I'm sorry that there aren't words, but thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I think we all just need to applaud for Anne. Now, you all know that Anne is one for the spotlight and loves all of this attention showered on her. So let us go have a cup of coffee, a slice of carrot cake, and say to Anne a few kind words and understand if she has to run away for a little bit. Let us have some time to celebrate.